Welcome to yet another Actar Bros review. The second Actar Bros review, and it's still Star Wars.
Yeah.
We like Star Wars a lot, and we hate Star Wars a lot. That tends to be a running theme, and maybe a theme that will carry into this review.
It's a pretty abusive relationship
with
is. Star Wars. It just keeps kicking us.
So
no one helps.
So today we are going over the final season of Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm. We talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, just kind of as it was going, and then about halfway through, we just said, look, we're just gonna talk about this at the end because we just come on and yell about it every week, and so we'll just save it, have one last talk about it at the end, and then be done with it.
Yeah, because our opinions were going all over the place throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And
so we were kind of saying the same things.
Yeah. You know? So I think a good place to start would just be
general opinion.
Yeah, general opinion. And maybe we'll do a little bit without spoilers, but we're gonna get into spoilers pretty quick. So if you don't want to know anything about it, just click off now.
Yeah.
So I think my general opinion, if I had to sum it up in one word, it would probably just be like, I don't know, bipolar or like mixed.
Yeah.
Just because like there's probably 3 different sections.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
There's 3 arcs,
very distinct sections of the season, and so that makes it very difficult to talk about the season as a whole.
Yeah,
you know, because which like you said, it makes it very conflicting opinions because, I would say so I'll just give my opinion is that we got some of the best Clone Wars that we've ever had, and some of the absolute worst.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and I think that something Kieran and I both kind of like cringed at a little bit, for lack of a better word, is that, you know, on Instagram, in some other people's posts, we saw someone say,
quite a few people.
People can argue about Star Wars, but one thing all fans can agree on is that Clone Wars and Dave Filoni are great. And we just kind of went like, you know, yes, it ended on a pretty high note and a pretty supreme arc, but you're forgetting
you're picking
the rest
and choosing
of the arc
what you want to do. And this doesn't take away from Filoni, because we were skeptical of him, and I mean, he did lose a little bit of trust in me throughout this last season, but he kind of redeemed my faith in him a little at the end, you know, like it had the end been bad, I probably would have lost a lot of hope in him, but he settled it, and I was like, it's okay, you know. But I think that quite a few people are kind of picking and choosing what they want to remember from this season.
And you can't blame them for that either.
No.
But I think that if we're trying to be reviewers, then we have to be impartial towards this series. And I think just before we jump into spoilers and a more in-depth thing, is that the unfortunate thing about this season is that you can watch the last 4 episodes and get everything you needed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was gonna get into, is just that there's honestly no point to watch it. In my mind now, the season 7 of Clone Wars is only 4 episodes. Because there's no reason for it to be anything else.
And there are a few plot holes that come into play.
Even with those.
Even with those, and that we're going to go and touch on that. And so just we're going into spoilers now, so that you know, if you're still watching
and haven't seen it, go watch it, or do whatever you need to do, you know, like if you're still watching, like, we can't stop you. Either you don't care that you might get spoiled, or you just are some sort of sadist that's like,
spoil it for me. But just to kind of get into it a little bit more, we have our 3 distinct arcs.
Yeah, so maybe we'll just go through them. We'll start with the first one, second one, and then the last one.
Yeah, okay, so we have the first arc, of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
And you know, when the first episode dropped, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, Clone Wars. And like we said, we touched on this already.
Yeah, we talked about this on podcast.
It feels like Clone Wars.
It's a very Clone Wars-esque episode. It's nothing. It's
Episode
not
and
the craziest thing you've ever seen. It's not a spectacular episode, but it's not terrible. It's just a bit of action. You got some stuff going on. It was just Clone Wars as usual.
Exactly. And so I think that we've touched on this arc and even the next one quite a bit already. So if you want to hear more in-depth details about those particular ones, refer to our last two Clone Wars podcasts.
Yeah.
But we'll still go into them a little bit here, which is that, you know, I like the action. However, it wasn't the most original concept that you have this kill squad of very specific skill set guys. You got big guy, you got Rambo guy, you got Deadshot guy, and you have smart guy. You know, and that's not the most original of concepts. No. And it begs the question, as I've said before, why was this something Filoni needed to have? Yeah. Because I said this before as well. This season has to be everything that Filoni really wanted to include and didn't get the chance to. And so for him to include this Bad Batch, I was hoping that it would be very influential and important, which then leads into the next sort of what I would call a plot hole or reopened loose thread, which is the resurrection of Echo.
Yeah. Especially, there was kind of this idea, and we'll kind of jump around in the timeline, I guess, a bit. There was this idea that we had that was kind of like, well, they brought Echo back, so it must have been for a reason.
Exactly.
And so up until the newest episode, we were kind of like, if he comes back, then it makes sense.
Exactly.
But he didn't.
He didn't. And so you take this character who had, like, not the most satisfying ending, but he had an ending. Yeah. And it was encapsulating of war and of loss of the time period and of what the clones had to go through really, and had to endure.
It really led into Fives' arc and the ending of the Domino Squad.
Exactly.
And so there's really no point.
There was no point in bringing him back unless it meant something. And so to bring him back and then he goes off with the squad, now we just assume that he went off with Order 66 and was killed by some Jedi or, you know, killed a Jedi, you know? Like, why would you bring him back just to give him an ambiguous ending where he was tied up? You know, that seems like the opposite of what this...
It wasn't a loose end. It wasn't a question that people had. It was just, I'm going to do this.
Exactly.
And blah.
So that seems like something that, you know, it seems to go in the face of what this final season should have been. Yeah. It resurrected a character and gave him a loose end instead of just leaving that loose end tied up.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is, kind of just, that's the biggest thing with the Bad Batch. Like, it wasn't terrible. It just, I wasn't a huge fan of it, and it was extra soured for me by the issue with Echo.
Yeah, exactly. And I was expecting Echo to be the one who told Rex about his chip. And we'll get into something that we sort of consider to be an inconsistency regarding the chip when we cover the last arc. But I think that pretty much encapsulates the Bad Batch arc, is that, well, you know, maintaining the feel of Clone Wars, it didn't seem necessary, and it didn't seem like what we needed out of this final season.
Yeah.
And now moving on to the middle arc, which is Ahsoka, Tano, and the Martez sisters.
Talk about an Oreo with just a terrible filling.
Yeah. So, to sum this one up, the only interaction that needed to happen in this entire arc was Bo-Katan / Ursa spotting Ahsoka and speaking with her.
That happened in the last 2 minutes of the 4th episode of the arc.
Yeah, it was a lot of unnecessary running around with these characters that we don't know and don't care about.
No, yeah.
And characters who are not at all compelling. We've met characters that are
relevant.
Yeah, we've met characters that are like this, that are you know, morally ambiguous, that we like Hondo, like the bounty hunters, you know, Any one of those ones.
And like, I watched a video of Filoni explaining the Martez sisters and their importance, and he was just talking about Ahsoka exploring this part in her life and how they kind of represent two paths she could maybe take, and to just kind of delve into this Coruscant underworld and how the Jedi aren't viewed by everyone this like as these heroes, and that's all well and good, but as we talked about this is that wasn't new information to us, and we're not entirely sure if like that's just our Star Wars knowledge, but I'm pretty sure we've had that in the Clone Wars before, like with Ventress and with Barriss. Barriss's entire arc was basically that.
Yeah.
And so for Ahsoka to be like, not everyone sees the Jedi as heroes, it kind of goes in, like you said, in the face of that, when her entire arc of being set up and then leaving the Jedi was stemmed off Barriss having that same belief.
Yeah, and then bleeding over to her, that was, we already went through this. Yeah. She lost faith in the Jedi. She doesn't need to then again lose faith in them. I felt that it was unnecessary, and that if you were going to explore Ahsoka afterwards, you could have done it in a very much more effective way. Yeah.
We don't need these ties to Solo and like...
Yeah, exactly.
The spice running.
The spice running and just the complete idiocy.
We've talked about this on the podcast. That, just to sum up, we were not happy with that arc.
Yeah.
It was not... As far as our opinions are concerned, that it was a terrible arc. To me, it was one of the absolute worst arcs in all of Clone Wars. Like, maybe just a little better than the droid arc with the frog guy.
Yeah.
Like, that level low, though.
And
so, like, I just don't really have that much more to say about it.
Yeah, I just think
don't
that...
want to dwell on it that much for this review.
To have explored Ahsoka in this sort of gray area is a good idea, and to sort of, to reinforce that idea that the Jedi aren't, these awesome figures, I think is an arc worth exploring, but I think that they failed. The execution and just the characters that they used, the way that they did it, like, who's a character to perfectly guide her through that, whose arc was left completely loose-ended? Asajj Ventress.
Yeah.
That's a character
or any of the bounty hunters.
Cad Bane, another character whose arc was left open-ended, who I was hoping to see this deleted scene that many hardcore Clone Wars fans wanted, which was Boba Fett
donning his armor and having a shootout with
Cad Bane, and that ties in with Ventress because that's where she was. Yeah. This would have been a really good way to show that moral ambiguity.
I would have rather had that than the Martez sisters, or even I would have taken that over the Bad Batch, because the Bad Batch and Echo
knew things that
those
had been
are things that hadn't existed. The point of season 7 should have been to wrap up things.
Exactly.
And Bane and Ventress are two characters that only exist in Clone Wars.
Exactly.
Like that Ahsoka and Rex, even we see later on.
Yeah.
But Ventress and Bane,
they
don't exist anywhere else.
We're not going to see their conclusion anywhere, so that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
But anyways, one final inconsistency that we noticed is that when Ahsoka is leaving Coruscant, she passes Anakin in his I call them Star Destroyers, and that is.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's incorrect, because he had been gone for a very long time in the Outer Rim sieges. Yeah. Padme says that to him.
He
says that to Padme in Revenge of the Sith. He says, I thought they'd never bring us back from those sieges. And the way that Bo-Katan speaks, Ahsoka, like, that couldn't have been too far in the past.
No.
Ahsoka leaving Coruscant and then showing up on Mandalore had to have been within a similar span of time, because Bo-Katan was in such a rush. And so it doesn't make sense for Anakin to have been by Coruscant and not to have visited his wife. And it was a cool scene. It did that parallel when Vader sensed Luke in Return of the Jedi, but it just doesn't make sense timeline-wise.
No.
And I wanted to point that out.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll move on to the last arc. which the last and best arc, you know. Started with the Siege of Mandalore, and that was spectacular. It was a great start, and had that been the start of the season we talked about, that would have been great. You could have opened with that, and yeah, there never would have been this weird flip-floppity crap. And so, yeah, I don't know. You go.
I think that in regards to summing up some of these, well, at least sort of tying up these characters in preparation and during Revenge of the Sith, you know, there was only so much that this last arc could do because we know where it ends up, right? And so to sort of to tie Maul back in for one last hurrah, because they left that somewhat open ended, and I think that overall it was pretty good. You know,
I liked a lot of the ways they tied into Revenge of the Sith, the meeting, and like all those different things, the pacing they used, the music they used to show where things are happening in the timeline. I like that a lot.
I appreciated in the third episode where Order 66 is called, everything beforehand just has this this eerie sense, you know, because you know what's going to happen, and it's just sort of playing this music. Everything is like eerily quiet as everything is sort of going on, and you know it's going to happen, but you're dreading it still. When Order 66 goes off, I loved all of that action. I loved Ahsoka, you know, blocking the bullets and then actually getting hit by some, because it shows that even the best Jedi would be overwhelmed by an army of clones, you know? I liked Maul when he was
very
free.
Much like the Vader scene in Rogue One.
Yeah,
there's a lot of parallels there.
I saw a meme.
I like that a lot.
I saw a meme that was calling this Maul's hallway scene, calling it the Maulway scene. Was the better version. I liked the approach that they did. It was sort of a new way of showing what would happen to a Jedi if they were on one of their ships.
It was interesting because it was
a new perspective on because I'm sure there were Jedi just on their, I don't know what they call them before, but they become what are Star Destroyers.
And just to have that closed environment and be not isolated, but contained. Yeah. Contained in this environment, and what are you going to do?
Yeah, and that they're trapped. This? Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
Want to get into the issue with
that? And so my issue with the way that they handled it is that in Star Wars Rebels, where we see Rex, the way he explains to Kanan, you know, that he removed his chip, implies that he did it before.
Yeah, what he says is because Kanan's very skeptical of him, and he says, "I never betrayed my Jedi. We all have a choice," is the direct quote. Yeah. And I was sitting there watching it and seeing Rex. It was really cool to see his conflicted, to be conflicted in him and basically give her a heads up. I like that a lot, and in the context of this Clone Wars arc and only looking at Clone Wars, it was really interesting. I liked it a lot because Ahsoka got the heads up from the Force of knowing what's going on with Anakin because she's connected with him, and then Rex giving her the heads up. I thought that both of those things were just enough for her to know something was wrong and have a bit of an edge, whereas a lot of the other Jedi were taken completely off guard. Yeah, exactly. And that was just enough for me to be like, okay, that's how she survived. Yeah. And I like that. But I'm sitting here and then I'm remembering that quote from Rebels, and I'm like,
we were both waiting this entire season for Rex to remove his chip.
Or
every episode, every episode that we saw Rex, we were like, where's his scar? Did he remove it yet? Because to us, that was something that had to happen before. They ended up doing it, but now he really did betray his Jedi. And Ahsoka, no, Ahsoka's not a Jedi, and no, he didn't betray his Jedi, who is Anakin. Yeah. but
It's just kind of like
it's
loopholes.
a bit of a loophole if you
Yeah.
look at it that way. It's being kind of cheeky about it,
and like he didn't kill her, but at the same time he tried to.
He tried
you know?
to. So,
And so
what is that worth? And now we just have to assume that Wolf and Gregor both killed their Jedi.
Yeah.
You know, and so what really is the use of any of them taking the chip out after, because they already did or tried to kill their Jedi, you know, like they're not going to continue to hunt them.
The thing is we did know, we had the feeling that was what happened with Wolf based on his reactions later on, but like at least Rex, we thought, took it out beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. And Kanan also says they said they regretted it later, that the chip made them do it, which made it seem like they went off and then they sort of shut down again and regretted what they did.
It was still active, but like that's probably just what they would said to each other. Like they were and that's kind of what I got, is that the clones were like out of commission after that, like because they killed their friends, you know. And so that it was a good episode, you know. It was a finale. It wrapped up what it could. It was interesting to see them have to fight Jesse. It was like I liked it because it gave the enemy a face.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a familiar face that now we're fighting our friend. I saw a quote that had said what Filoni wanted to do with that was kind of show the transition from these aren't clones anymore, now we're stormtroopers, you know, just kind of we're following orders and we're doing what we have to do. And so that was kind of interesting. And then just kind of moving into the end, I thought the end was really good because it wrapped up as much as it could. We liked when Ahsoka did the cool force, using the force to spin her lightsabers
use
around.
her lightsabers.
That was a good move. But showing Vader I thought was very cool. And I was hoping we would get to see a Clone Wars version of Vader, which I liked. And I liked they had the red tint in the goggles and you could see his face underneath, like in A New Hope.
Yeah. I think that that end could, you know, signify a couple things. It could be him trying to hunt her down. It could be a part of Vader that, you know, and always this theme is always present, that there is he was hunting Jedi afterwards, and so that could be one insinuation. It could also be some subtle hitting that there is that little bit of Anakin, that you know, he's hunting her, but he still has this attachment to her as well. It ends with this empty clone helmet, which I think is appropriate because it's this end to the Clone Wars, which, you know, is really the only piece of Star Wars media that actually shows the clones as any sort of human, you know, which I thought was something that it always did very well.
I like that.
I think that everything, this is something Kieran said once, is that everything Filoni does, he thinks it's his last thing.
Yeah.
So he puts everything he wanted to finish, like he put everything he didn't get to do in Clone Wars into Rebels. He put Ahsoka there again. He put Rex there again.
And he put an ending to the Clone Wars.
And he put an ending to the Clone Wars in there, and he put an ending to those characters. So I think that maybe that's why we see some of those inconsistencies here.
Yeah.
I think that some of the choices should have been a little bit more well thought out.
Yeah.
In regards to how they tie into everything. I'm not sure what his opinion is on the fact that, like, Rex kind of contradicts himself.
Yeah, I don't know. Which is, it's always strange to me because he's like the lore keeper, you know? Like, he's usually very on top of that kind of thing, which just kind of, it doesn't break the story. It doesn't, like, destroy anything in Star Wars. It's just a bit of a contradiction that bigger fans will notice and kind of go, hey, there's this. But that's nothing new. There's always things like that where a lightsaber changes from movie to movie and then they retcon it afterwards that Anakin was tinkering with their, you know, just things like that. And so it's nothing that wrecks the story. I just want to say that we also don't know when necessarily in the timeline Vader's going to look at that wreckage and Ahsoka's lightsaber. Like I said, I'm guessing it's somewhere around before A New Hope because that's the suit that he had. But it doesn't really affect anything either. But so that's kind of it. You know, Bad Batch was fine. Martez Sisters was awful, and then the Siege of Mandalore till the end.
Yeah, we
The
didn't
Revenge
even
of the
talk
Sith
about
arc was
Ahsoka's
good.
fight with Maul, which was excellent.
Spectacular.
They
Yeah.
used motion capture. Kieran and I picked up on that right
Immediately,
away.
yeah.
We saw the way that they were moving, and we said, "This is mocap."
Yeah.
And we wondered if it's Ray Park, and it was. And we
Mhm.
thought that was really good. That was one of the best lightsaber duels in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and Filoni said that too.
Yeah, so we thought that was really good. To see Ahsoka like best Maul, I thought was really awesome. That, you know, she was able to defeat this Sith Lord, that she has enough skill at this point
Yeah.
that she actually is like this super awesome warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there are a few things that you know, there's still a bit of gray area, which is unfortunate. You know, like I'm pretty sure Ahsoka like killed the seventh son and took his lightsabers, and you know, Rex now has assumedly infiltrated Gregor and Wolf's platoon and remove their chips somehow. And if that's the case, why didn't he also do that to Echo and the Bad Batch if they brought back Echo? Because Echo's not in Rebels, so we can assume that he didn't do that and that Echo is just dead.
Yeah.
You know? There's just sort of these odd choices.
Yeah.
And so there was also some subtle implications in Rebels that Rex actually returned to employment with the Empire.
Yeah, those
Somewhat.
were kind of for interpretation. But
Yeah.
It could be read that way.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
So, you know, there are a few things that I would love to ask Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Just to ask for some clarification, but the way that we watched it, we kept pausing Revenge of the Sith and cutting back to Clone Wars in the places where it fits in, and so that was kind of a fun and interesting way to especially see where things match up and how.
We were also
how it
wondering
all
if anyone
goes.
else watched it like that.
Mhm.
So if you're watching this and you watched it like that, let us know.
Yeah.
Because we were wondering if we were the only ones.
Yeah. But we don't want this to run too long.
Turned into a bit of a podcast.
Yeah,
but,
it's pretty long already. But those are kind of our thoughts on it. Is that, you know, the last 4 episodes were a pretty great conclusion. There are just those little nagging details throughout all of it.
Yeah. I could have gone with just having the last 4 episodes, though.
And
that's kind of my grand opinion of this last season.
I wish that they had, you know, been, maybe it could have had more time to
like if the whole
do it naturally
season
with this.
had been crossing over with Revenge of the Sith, that would have made me happy.
And a little bit of bounty hunter stuff too.
Yeah.
With Ventress.
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We'll probably touch on it again at some point. Like we'll be talking about this in times to come, complaining about it, or, you know, praising what it did right. But I think, you know, we if you watch our other podcasts, we were sort of somewhat losing faith in Filoni and why he was doing these things with the few precious episodes that he had to tell this story. But he managed to tell a very satisfying 4-episode ending to the Clone Wars. But as I say, it's unfortunate that really there's only 4 episodes of the finale of Clone Wars, right? Yeah. But I think that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah, let us know if you're absolutely disgusted that we spoke so ill of it. You know, let us know.
It's not really that new that we have opinions in Star Wars that aren't necessarily popular.
Exactly. But we were gonna say this at the beginning, but like the video, subscribe.
Yeah, I wanted to say is that in our videos, in our stats actually, is basically 60% of the people that watch our videos aren't subscribed. So if you're one of those people, subscribe away, and then you'll get to see all the videos, and we can and comment. If you comment, we'll talk to you. In the last podcast, Tyler Clark had commented, and we had a brief comment back and forth about the new Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So if you want to talk to us about Clone Wars, do some comments in our thing, or go on our Instagram and talk to us there.
Yeah, for sure.
We also have a Facebook page now, actually. I want to say that too.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, may the Force be with you.